Hey guys, Coach Dan here. We're back again with a push workout. So last week, the back end of the week, I took half of the week off. So in, some worlds, there'll be some chit chat about things called deloads. And for muscle growth, which is my goal, or, physique related outcomes, there's not heaps of good research or evidence to suggest that deloads are massively worthwhile. But I think, again, I auto-regulate them, and that's sometimes not the best way to do things. So if things aren't feeling so good, some joints are feeling a bit how you're going, take some time. I had high level of fatigue as well. I felt pretty run down. I finished my uni project last week, my honours project, so that was all building into that. And so I just took the back end of the week off. So with that, I've tried a whole bunch of deload methods, like reducing intensity, reducing volume, reducing intensity and volume, something like that. But I've just found that you come in and you do that workout, it's just a bit, I don't want to use the word lame or shit or whatever like that, but it's just a bit of a nothing workout. It's kind of like, well, if I don't have to do this, I don't want to. And when, experimenting between sort of doing, less volume, less intensity, or just not training at all, they're pretty... I couldn't tell the difference between the two, so I just don't train at all. Take some time completely away, get freshened up, hopefully some of the fatigue goes away, body starts to feel a bit better, and then you start again after that. So for me, that was half a week last week. It could be a full week. It could involve, time away from the gym, but doing other exercise activities that aren't resistance or training related, like, doing some cycling, doing some rowing, whatever it might be. But for me, it's just time off these days, and I don't really sort of set a time. I kind of auto-regulate it, meaning when I feel I need it, I take it. Now, some interesting things happen after deloads, like sometimes strength does improve, which you'd think, oh, that's a bit unusual, but it makes sense in the fact that if you reduce some of the fatigue, and some of that fatigue has been masking your strength, your strength will go up. That makes a little bit of sense. So that's an interesting thing. Also, sometimes psychologically you come back to it and you don't really want to do it anymore. So you'll be like, oh, actually, I don't know if I really like this. Half a week's usually okay. If you take too much, for me anyway, if you take a week off, you kind of come back and go, oh, how do I do these things again? How does this work? But once you get started again, you start to feel good and you start to roll into old routines and habits of how to do stuff. So yeah, so we've got a quiet gym today as well, so that'll be cool. We get around and not have to wait for too much stuff. And yeah, let's get after it. Push workout, if it's available out there, which it looks like it should be, we're going to go low incline Smith bench press because it is International Chest Day. Ho ho! Let's go. First up, the Smith machine, low incline Smith machine bench press. So the Smith machine has some advantages for muscle growth, I think, which is the stability. So it kind of sits on these rails here, won't wobble off, so you can really just go and take the exercise nice and close to failure without too much issue with technique failure, which, maybe sounds lazy or something like that. But again, if the goal's growth, then we don't have to worry about misgrooving or missing a rep or anything like that due to not putting it in the right spot, because it's always in the same spot. So as far as doing something on an incline goes, the incline allows us to kind of change the angle and change the position that our body's going in, and therefore potentially change what we're training. So for incline movements, usually the target is a little bit more upper chest, so trying to focus on some of the pec muscles that kind of go in towards the collarbone or clavicle, and they kind of angle up slightly. So if you think about all the muscles of the pec, they'll kind of insert in the front of your arm here. Some of them they sort of head in towards your torso, head in towards your sternum, and then some kind of go upwards and head towards the clavicle and the inner third of the clavicle, and some of them head down towards the rib cage area. Now, if we put this on incline, our arm, instead of coming directly across the body or somewhat directly across the body like a flat press, will angle up. So that's kind of the idea there. Now, the old belief, let's call it, was that the incline was better for upper pec growth. But it just seems that it doesn't really use your lower pec as well, which again, that might not be an advantage for someone who's just trying to grow their chest overall. But for me, I am trying to do a bit more for my upper pec. So to do less for the lower pec is not a bad thing for me. So pressing cues are the same as always. So for the Smith machine, we kind of roll it out, control the down, gently tap the chest, press up aggressive. So as we come down, feel the stretch or chest all stretch and open up. Gently tap, again allowing for, you know, control, so we're not kind of slamming it off the chest or bouncing it. And then we push up pretty aggressively. So we've got a couple of sets here. Weight-wise, I'm not sure because I had the back end of last week off. We'll see how we're feeling on the build-up. All right, let's go. All right, next up we have the plate loaded lying chest press. So this is quite a good one. So if we think about the chest training as mentioned after the Smith machine bench, the chest, the muscle itself, or the pectoralis major, the main muscle we're probably looking to train there, kind of originates from three different spots. One is the clavicle, or the inner third of the clavicle. So up here through here, which we call the clavicular pec. Part of it's a sternal pec, which is coming down here, and part of it the costal pec, or into the ribs. So when we're doing different chest movements, there's potential merit in making sure we're trying to chain those evenly, or at least train them in part. So if we've done the incline, which is kind of that arm going slightly up and maybe more focus on the clavicular pec, now we're doing something on the horizontal, which is just the whole pec overall, but also probably leaning towards the sternal pec as the arm's coming across the body. But this might just train the whole pec overall, and that's cool. So I've got a little bit of work for the clavicular pec, the upper pec, and now this is the whole pec, and then I've got a fly coming after this. So this one here, good machine. I've got the yoga block here, which kind of allows for extra range. There are two hand options. For me, I figured over time what feels most effective is the outside one, and some people like that one, and that's completely fine. So we're here, same cues as all pressing movement. Press up using the chest, control the way down, feel the chest stretch, and then push up using the chest. So changing the angle a little bit here, going from a slight incline to a more of a horizontal press, just for the sake of training the pec overall. All right, we've got to wait to build up to, and then let's go for it. Okay, so next up we have a fly variation using the functional trainer or small cave machine. So the reason that I do this one, there's a pec deck over there or just a standard machine fly, but this one allows you to kind of customize the angle that you want. So I set a little bit lower and go slightly up. Also resistance wise, this one's going to start off being harder at the back because we're going to be going directly against us with our arm in this position, and it's going to get easier as we hook around. So for muscle growth, that potentially has some merit is to make it harder in the stretch position. There seems to be some good value in the stretch position. Not that the short position is invaluable at all, it just seems that that is a more hypertrophic or muscle growing potential position, is where the muscle is stretched out of length. And so if we make it also hard in that position, that might have some merit. This one takes a little bit of fucking around, which is you got to get the bench in here, you got to get this set, blah, blah, blah. But once you kind of do that over a course of a couple of weeks, I just note it down and then we don't have to change. Getting into position is also a bit of a challenge because as you'll see in a second, you have to grab these handles, walk in front, sit on the bench. So what that means as far as weight goes is I don't do too heavy a weight here. It's more moderate. So I'm going to shoot for about 10 to 15. If I had to lift if I chose a really heavy weight here and did say 6 to 8, it would mean I have to wrestle a really heavy weight forward and that might just waste a bit of juice. So moderate weight, lowish position for me because I'm focusing more on the upper pec and that's about that. So we'll come forward with these like this, sit down, get into position, angle up a touch. So again, the clavicular pec being that it kind of finishes in the inner third of the clavicle. So if you think about that position there and you think about where it's attaching on the arm, what it means is we want that kind of going up there. And it's almost like if I look at myself in the mirror, it's almost like I'm giving myself an uppercut with my bicep if my arm continues on. So coming low, slightly high to give myself an uppercut. Again, going up here to the head might encourage your anterior deltoid to be able to work a little bit more. So kind of just below the chin, coming across the body like that. Big stretch, as large a stretch as your flexibility and mobility allow, big stretch to the chest, angle slightly up for me. This one would work well, same as if you were doing it horizontally as well. Would be good if that was your focus. For me, again, we're going a bit further up, so we don't use the lower pec as much because I've got a more muscle in the lower pec and I'm trying to kind of even that out. All right, let us begin in a moment here, find our weight and then go for it. So we're going lateral deltoid or shoulders next. So this is quite a unique variation. I'm calling it the through the legs single arm cable lateral raise. So there's lots of people who know more about biomechanics and stuff than me, but I just kind of generally know the anatomy or the origin and insertion of a muscle. I train it that way. But also then within that, there's a little bit of unknown. So with that regard, like you can do lateral raises from in front of the body. This one's coming between my legs. There's behind the body, especially with the cable, you can do all these different variations. And I'm inclined to, across time, do them all because they're probably stretching my shoulder and moving me into different positions. So for this particular one, I've got these cuffs on my hand. I'll clip in between my legs, which will make sense in a second here. I'll come forward, take some of the tension, and then just turn straight off to the side. So it's about 45 degrees, and then I'm raising still directly in line with where the cable machine's angled. So essentially, I am setting this up such that my arm has been pulled into my body, stretching my deltoid out that way, and then I'm kind of raising through there. So it took me a while to kind of figure out what position I want to do this at, but I just think slightly off to the side makes the most sense. So essentially all we are doing here is, if this is anterior deltoid, sort of coming into that position, we're turning off such that's just slightly away from that. And that makes sense for me. The most recent variation I've been doing on this day is behind the back cable lateral raise on the functional trainer, which you just saw before for the flies. So for this particular variation, I'm going between the legs, pulling my arm into this position and just changing the angle at which I'm working that shoulder, which to me makes sense. This one I've only ever done once before in a program, and it felt really effective. So it's coming back in. Like I said, you could do this kind of one, you could do behind the back, and over the course of time, I would recommend that to train the shoulder, you know, overall. All right, so I've not done this at this gym before, so I've got to take a couple of sets to find my way, and then we'll be up and running. Okay, little note on that lateral raise. So a potential downside of it is that because it's coming between your legs, it kind of blocks you from going, or potentially having it high as you want, because it'll kind of run into your crutch. So that's a potential downside, but the angle at which it comes is good. Later on down the track, I can do one where we come across the body, and that will be cool as well. And we just, yeah, the variations, nothing wrong with the variation. So now we move on to the shoulder press, neutral grip plate loaded shoulder press. So if that kind of lateral raise was kind of going in that direction, this now kind of comes towards my head to make sure it's my anterior delt. So if we think about the anterior delt, inserting at the same place as the lateral delt, but coming into the lateral third of the collarbone or clavicle. So it's kind of bringing your arm towards your head like this, right? So I take a neutral grip because that feels comfy on my shoulders. Get a nice strong position. Think about driving my arm towards my head, controlling the way down, stretching the shoulder out. As simple as that. So when I'm doing this, I'm not thinking about pushing up necessarily. I'm thinking about pulling my arm towards my head, and therefore using the anterior part of my delt as good as I can. We shall do a couple of sets here. Now, coming off of that lateral delt set usually makes this a little bit weaker, but again, this is not the priority for me. Those are. So I am cool with that, even though I complain about being a weak little bitch on this one. All right, let's build her up. All right, next up we're going V-bar pushdown, so a tricep extension exercise. So of late, in position of this, I've been doing an easy bar skull crusher, but I'm feeling some tenderness around the elbow region, so I'm gonna wait till that kind of irons out. Now, a potential reason that is pretty difficult on the elbows is that it's really hard in that stretch position. So I figure a pushdown maybe wouldn't be as difficult in the stretch position. Potentially, well, theoretically not as effective in my mind, but again, for the time being, take care of the joints, wait for this elbow to iron out, and then maybe head back to another skull crusher variation. I already tried incline dumbbell one, and that felt pretty good, so I might go back to that in the not too distant future. So elbows by the side. This particular pushdown has a back support, so I like that to get me balanced. And then we rock like that. Maybe I'll do a high-ish kind of rep range, 10 to 20 reps-ish. I do a few sets here, so maybe 5 sets. Maybe that's something to consider reducing for the tricep work to kind of, again, let this elbow chill out. Maybe I'll see how I feel after 3 or 4 sets here, then go from there. All right, that's a wrap on the workout, guys. A good return to the gym after half a week off. So felt pretty good across the board. A couple of little changes there, just kind of working around some stuff, as well as just some variation due to effectiveness and stuff like that. But as always, it's just about getting back in there and getting, trying to look for that progression. So my kind of 3 words that I kind of go into each workout with currently are execution, which I'm always relatively good at, intensity, which I'm trying to work at, which is just working really hard or making sure each set is really challenging, and then focus. So once in the workout, paying attention and being fully engaged in the workout to kind of give me, break from life outside of it. And that helps make the whole experience enjoyable and really effective and stuff like that. As I said in the intro, so coming off of 3 or half a week off, so a few workouts off, sometimes you get back into it and it feels a bit foreign, or, for some people they feel really strong. It's just everyone's effect is differently. But again, just helping to kind of reduce fatigue, make my body feel good and stuff like that, and open up another good chunk of time that I can train for without having to take another break or that fatigue building up again. So we're all good. We go lower body tomorrow, so got to get in there, get some Smith machine squats in and really give it some for the rest of this week, getting back into the groove. So as always, guys, if you're liking the content, please hit the subscribe up here. It's easy peasy. Click subscribe. Doesn't cost you a thing. And if you want to watch more, there's a playlist up here with all my other workouts. And as always, it's about progress over perfection. Coach Dan, signing off.